Hey there, this is Reese here at Produce Results, and today I'm going to show you a brief overview of how we connect and manage files for one of our clients, UNT. So how they differ from other clients is we have to access all of their stuff behind a VPN. And the first step to do that, using the credentials that are provided to you, is to log into their web-based VPN at vpn.unt.edu. Once you've logged into this, over on the left, we have something called AnyConnect. AnyConnect is a VPN application provided through Cisco that we can use to then be able to access their files as if they were local. So I've already had this downloaded. So what you want to do is save this, install it. And once you have that installed, what you want to do is go on here, and just like you had just done on the web browser, type in VPN or VPN1, both of them work, .unt.edu, and it's going to prompt you for login credentials. So it's going to be the same ones provided that you use for the same web interface. So once you've done that, and once you've accepted terms and conditions, what you're going to be able to do now is access their files as if they were local. So what that means for us is now we can head over to the dev site and see it live, just like it's a normal website for anyone to see. What it also means is for on the back end for FTP, we can actually access those files now, where before we wouldn't have any kind of access allowed. So the first step of what we're going to do today is I'm going to kind of just talk about the current workflow, what I've done so far, and what still needs to be happening. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to access the Drupal backend. And what this is going to do is provide us access to all the Drupal-based features, such as adding blocks, block types, pages, views, store, products, product types, and I'll kind of go through each of these. But what the main idea was is giving them a fresh new look, adding some new features, and overall just improving their site. So some of the main features that we've already added was this current courses, past courses, and future courses. So as of recently, we actually decided to remove the past courses. So you might see references of that in the back end, but those will not be used unless they decide to in a future date. But what we were in the middle of doing was adding future courses, and that's what I was just working on last. So what I can do is kind of show you what I was doing there, the idea behind it, and all of that. So with future courses, what they would like to be able to do is not just show current courses where you can register and sign up, but show future courses that will be upcoming but are not able to be registered on yet. So what I have already done is under products, you can see here that we have all these different products, and some of them are expired, some of them are coming up to date. And I added a test one in just as a future to get an idea of what it's going to look like once it's in there. So what I had to go in there and do was add a new field for registration begins, because there was one for registration deadline, but we wouldn't be able to track future events through that. So my idea here is adding a registration begins time, so then we can set it to where it only shows future events in this selected view. So it would only show anything that's has a future date and registration begins on this page that I was just on previously, which is the training schedule / future. I have the module added, I have the views added, but the last pieces I was working on was adding the filter types under the view to make it only show up the future courses. And you can find that up here under structure, then views, and then by hitting edit here on the PFIA training calendar. And under the displays, we have one for past, which is disabled for now, and then future, which is the one that I was currently working on. And then here under filter, what I did was I clicked registration begins. And what I did was I've been messing around with how to filter out just those results. So the last piece left on that is just getting those showing up on that view. So that's just one example of something we're working on this site. Okay, so the other piece is if we have to use it, is connecting through CyberDuck through the same way that we mentioned before. And this gives us access to the theme files, which just as you saw me doing there, we only have access to certain folders. So if it's not listed in one of these, you will have to reach out and have me to talk to UNT to get access to those. But basically this folder is for uploading any kind of external files, folders, PDFs, docs. And then we have another folder where we have access to the actual template, which uses Zerb's Foundation, if you have any experience with that. If not, it's pretty similar to Bootstrap's setup, but that it uses more of BIM-based CSS naming conventions. So the next piece I want to cover is actually on how you will be recording your time and progress in intervals. Intervals is the service we use to track and manage our time for different clients. So for example, for this one, if I'm on this UNT task and I want to track my time, we can start the timer by hitting this, and it's going to track our time and our progress we're making in that current. So when you're working on a project, you'll click that and start it, do your work, and then once you're finished up, or if you need to take a break or anything like that, you can pause it here. And once again, if you're taking a break, you can just resume it, and it's going to keep that current time tracked. Or if you're done, what you're going to do is hit apply either down here or up and submit your time in. So what usually is going to be happening with this one is being under front end. And then what you're going to do in here is give a brief description, because you're limited to 255 characters. So this is more just a brief description of what you've done. So for an example of that, my last one was setting up future courses, added test course, troubleshooting card issues, etc. So it's just a brief description. And if you're needing to go more into detail about what's happening or tracking what's going on, that's what a comment's for. And those will be added here, and you can add comments with lists, bullet points, all that stuff. And once you're done with that part, if you're done with the tasks and everything's been finished, what you'll do is go up here to update task. And what you're going to do is assign it from yourself to either Andy or to me. And then once you've done, you're going to hit up here where it says save task. What that's going to do is save the current settings and update and add anything that you've changed, with that being a comment, assignment, all that. All right, next I'm going to jump back into the UNT site and just kind of go over a brief of the layout of the site and kind of walk through each piece of it. So first off, as you saw before, we have our main homepage, which most of the work here is done. If anything, it's going to be any kind of small updates to the menu or something like that. Very lightweight changes at that, if there's anything. So the main pieces that we're still working on heavily is with the product. More specifically, the product types. So recently I added something called budget training, which is a separate conference event that they're wanting to track separately than their PFIA training. And what that's going to be more is just its own view, which is already created. I'm pretty sure that's done and good to go for, but there might still be a couple still moving pieces that need to be tied in. The biggest one that's still being worked on, as I showed, is with the PFIA training, with the recently added future and the removal of past, which the future one needs to still be wrapped up. But I'll give a concise list of the tasks that are left and try to break them down on priority and answer any questions you might have that aren't covered on the lists. So another piece I want to cover is just QA and testing. This is a dev site, so none of your changes are going to be live. So you do have that freedom of not having to worry about any kind of mistakes being shown to the main public. But in saying that, this is a UNT site, which means we have to be a lot more careful with it and how we handle things. The biggest one, as you keep seeing all these pages, is about updates that need to be done to the site. And while we have access to update these ourselves, we have been asked not to touch these and not to update any of these. So you just need to ignore these errors popping up about updates or anything like that, because that is handled internally by their IT team. Along with that, as an example, if you need anything added, a new module, anything like that, once again, we have the ability to add them, but we have to go through the proper channels to add those. For example, with the last task I was working on, they wanted to add the ability to limit seats. So I had to have the module for Drupal Commerce Stock added, which is right here, Commerce Stock. That had to be added by their IT person. So if that is the case, reach out to one of us, and how you'd want to do that is using my intervals. So what you want to do is in here, if you know you're missing information, what you'd want to do is assign that status of missing information and add a comment below the summary stating, that you need this module added, and, mention the module, possibly add the link from the Drupal store. If you can do that, that always helps for them to be able to find it faster, and then we can get that added for you. And then once that's done, we'll reassign it back to you. As far as quality assurance is concerned, the biggest thing we just need to do is, double check your work. What you want to do is anytime you add a module, test it again. Clear your cache, clear your cookies, test again, make sure it's still working properly. Test it on mobile to make sure that it's still working properly on mobile. And then what you want to do after that is assign it to one of us, and we'll test it once again before we make sure that it's good to go, before it's ever pushed to production. As far as tools you'll need for this, we've covered, AnyConnect, which you will need to be able to connect to the files. I said CyberDuck, but honestly, any FTP will work. You just need to be able to have FTP access. On Mac, I prefer CyberDuck. On Windows, I prefer FileZilla, but it's just whatever your preference is on that part. As far as editors go, you just need a simple text editor. I use Visual Studio Code. I've used Sublime in the past. Just any text editor will work whenever you're working with any of the CSS files, with any of the HTML files. When it comes to Drupal, that's all built into the web. So obviously you're going to have Drupal experience, Drupal understanding. And this is running on Drupal 7.56, I believe. Yes, so it's on Drupal 7.56. So if you have Drupal 7 knowledge, that is the best. The biggest and main plugin that we're using that is used across the site that you need to have some kind of experience with, or just the ability to learn it, is with Commerce, which is what we use for any kind of sales. And in this case, we're not actually selling products, but what we're selling is courses and seats to those courses, which is just going to give them access to get those seats online at their convenience. So it also goes without saying, the other main skill sets you need to have is experience in HTML and CSS, preferably in BIM style of CSS coding, since that goes in line with how Zurb is set up. If you're not familiar with BIM, it is pretty easy to get the overall idea down. It's just a certain way that you name things, the methodology behind how you name things. Getbim.com is where you can start and seeing the naming conventions, or you can just go through the Zerb CSS files and just mimic how they're currently set up. All right, but what I mentioned before is that all the tasks that you need to finish on the site will be sent to you, and try to be as concise and thorough with it as possible. I also will try to send along any kind of credentials you might have. But if anything slips through the cracks, as it might, feel free to contact out to me or to Andy or to Michael, and we'll try to get you the information that you need as fast as possible. But again, if there's anything missing, you can feel free to reach out to me. You can do that by emailing me at reese@produceresults.com, and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can and get anything else that you're needing, that you're missing. All right, well, that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching and looking forward to working with you.